have told you to bring that hoe over. I need this edge bale.
I don't know if you can afford me.
Parker Schnabel didn't just dig up gold this season, he ripped over 6,500 ounces out of the earth while one of his biggest machines blew a tire and nearly shut the whole mine down. From busted gear to freezing ground, this wild ride nearly destroyed his crew, but they fought back with sweat, grit, and pure madness. Tune in for the twist that almost ended everything. Just when the gold was finally flowing, something terrifying started happening beneath their feet. 6,000 ounces and a flat tire. Down at the dig site they call the money pit, things are getting dicey. Parker's only got one plant running. Her name's rock sand, and it's barely hanging on. Mitch, the foreman, is trying to move 250 yards of pay dirt every single hour with just that one machine. That's like trying to fill a swimming pool with a teacup. Meanwhile, most of the team is already busy ripping open new ground for next season. Helpful? Not really. Because what they need now is boots on the ground, hands on the wheel, and gear that doesn't snap every other hour. But just when it looks like they're about to lose it all, something deep in the pit shifts. And what it reveals might change everything. Tatiana Costa is hustling. She's on double duty, tossing rocks and feeding Roxanne her meal of pay dirt. Alone, solo, all by herself. And she's got to keep those tailings clear or else the plant could jam, and that means everything comes to a stop. No gold, no progress, just frustration. Then boom, drama hits, flat tire, not your everyday oopsie. The only loader on site goes down. And that machine is kind of important. It's the one that feeds rock sand and clears all the gunk. Without it, the whole show grinds to a halt. Total shutdown. That means zero dirt moved, zero gold processed, and a whole lot of annoyed faces. Taylor rushes in, tire in hand, but surprise, that rim? Toast, totally wrecked. The inside of the tire chewed it up like a snag. Even if they slap a new tire on, it's just gonna spin loose again. But lucky for them, they've got spare rims and tires lying around. Not the end of the world, but still a major pain. And this? Just a tiny slice of the madness. Imagine this happening over and over, day after day. Every delay chips away at their shot to reach their goal. But Parker, he's relentless. The guy doesn't quit. He's got eyes on the prize. Over 6,000 ounces of gold. That's millions worth of metal. Even with the busted gear, missing crew, and back-to-back hiccups, he's making it happen. Every time something breaks, someone steps up. They slap on a patch, swap a part, hustle harder. The whole team's grinding like there's no tomorrow. It's not clean or pretty, but it's gold mining. Dirt, noise, sweat, and stubborn willpower. They keep going, and the gold, it keeps coming. The weather doesn't help. Rain makes everything a muddy mess. Machines sink, roads vanish, crews get soaked, tired, cold. But there's no quitting. They put on their boots and push through, one muddy step at a time. Then the wash plant starts acting up again. Clogs, screeches, belts slipping, water pressure tanking. Everyone rushes in, fixes flying left and right. It's like putting out fires with a squirt gun. Still, they get it back online. More dirt in, more gold out. Mitch hasn't slept more than 5 hours in days. His face says it all. Red eyes, greasy hair, that 1,000-yard stare. But he's still there, still barking orders, making sure every load counts, because every scoop of dirt could hold that magic flake. Tatiana starts working night shifts too. Her hands are blistered, back aching, but she won't stop. She wants that gold stacked high, wants to beat last year, wants to prove they can do it even with half the crew and broken gear. There are moments of joy though, when the clean-out tray sparkles a little brighter, when the scales show more weight than expected. Those moments, pure gold. The crew cheers, high fives fly. Just for a second, the stress melts away. Then it's back to the grind, more dirt, more noise, another hose split, another tire blown, another delay, but they just keep shoving forward. Parker checks the totals every night. He knows how far they've come and how far they still need to go. The number is always on his mind. Over 6,000 ounces is close, but not close enough. Then comes the river problem. Water levels drop. Pumps start sucking air. No water, no wash plant. The crew builds new intake lines, shifts pipes, rigs up backup pumps. It's patchwork madness, but they make it work. And then there's the frost. Ground starts freezing early. That locks pay dirt in place like cement. Machines can't dig. The race is now against the cold. Every hour counts. They run shifts around the clock. More machines break, more parts fly in by air. Wrenches clank, sparks fly, tempers flare. Still the ounces grow. Bit by bit, they climb. By week 8, exhaustion sets in. Bodies hurt, minds blur, but that number keeps growing. Over 5,000 ounces, then 5,500, then 6,000. Cheers erupt, faces light up, but they're not done. They want more. Just a few more days, a few more yards, that final push. And they get it. They claw their way past 6,000. Way past. It's gritty, it's messy, it's hard-earned. When Parker looks back, he sees more than gold. He sees every setback they crushed, every tired face that didn't quit, every ounce a story, every shovel full a battle. Parker Schnabel was back in the dirt, digging deep and chasing gold like a hungry kid chasing ice cream on a hot day. This wasn't just any season. This one went full blast from day one. It had busted machines, near disasters, big wins, and gold. Lots and lots of it. We're talking about a haul that'd make a pirate cry tears of joy. Parker didn't just hit the jackpot, he crushed it with both boots in the mud and sweat dripping down his nose. They had a good start, but things were about to get tougher, louder, and way more exciting. The loader that saved the day. Every day started early before the sun could even peek over the hills. Cold mornings, muddy boots, and engines that coughed to life. Parker and his crew weren't messing around. They were on a mission to dig up more gold than ever before. And boy, did they have their hands full. The machines roared, belts squealed, and rocks tumbled. It was like a wild orchestra made of metal, dirt, and pure willpower. But things don't just go smooth in the goldfields, not when you're chasing piles of treasure buried under tons of dirt. One minute everything's working fine, and the next, boom, a tire blows out. Not just any tire, this beast was taller than most folks and heavier than a truckload of bricks. The loader was done for, sitting there like a stubborn elephant refusing to budge. That meant the wash plant had to shut down. No rocks going in means no gold coming out. Time is money in the gold game, and every minute that loader sat still was like burning dollar bills. Parker needed that tire swapped fast, and Taylor, the crew's go-to fixer, stepped in. No cape, no superpowers, just grit and know-how. He grabbed his tools, buzzed off the nuts like a pro, craned the blown tire off, hoisted the fresh one on, and tightened those bolts like his life depended on it. The machine didn't just roll out ready, it stormed back into action. That quick fix? It saved the whole day. Loader back on track, wash plant back in business, and the gold train was rolling again. That was just the beginning. This season was filled with moments like that. Parker didn't just want a decent year, he was aiming for something wild, over 7,000 ounces of gold. That's a mountain of metal, and every week he needed at least 300 ounces just to stay in the fight. And let me tell you, the fight was real. One of the biggest plays he made was sending Tyson out to Australia Creek. That spot was tricky. Mud everywhere, hidden rocks waiting to snap axles, and ground that didn't always give up its gold easy. But Tyson and the crew rolled in and went to work like a pack of wolves. Machines grinding, shovels moving, and everybody chasing that shimmer in the dirt. Long hours turned into longer weeks. Sleep was a luxury and hot meals were rare. But nobody complained, they were all in. Every speck of gold felt like a victory. They knew what they were after, and they weren't leaving without it. When it came time to weigh the haul from Australia Creek, Parker stood over the scale like a kid on Christmas morning. The numbers started rolling in. First 20 ounces, then 40, then it shot up to 80, 100, 130, 200, 270, and finally it landed at 282.2 ounces. That's right, over $500,000 in gold just from that dig. Australia Creek paid off big time. But that was just one piece of the puzzle. Parker had his eyes everywhere. His crew kept pushing, moving dirt, battling breakdowns, and keeping the plants running. If a belt snapped, they patched it. If an engine sputtered, they fixed it. If the rain turned the site into a swamp, they built roads out of rocks and kept rolling. Every week was a race against time. Fuel tanks needed filling, parts had to be ordered, people had to be fed, machines never slept and neither did the crew. The pressure was heavy, you could feel it in the air. But Parker, he thrived in that chaos. There were days the weather tried to shut them down, rain poured, turning the site into soup. Winds howled, knocking over gear and flipping tarps like they were nothing. But the crew kept grinding. They slipped, they slid, they cursed the mud, but they never stopped. That gold wasn't going to dig itself up. Then came the tally. Ounce by ounce, it added up. The numbers climbed like a mountain. 1,000, 2,000, then 3. The crew could feel it, they were onto something massive. By the time they crossed the 6,000-ounce mark, jaws were dropping. That wasn't just a good season, it was record-breaking. A haul like that, it turns heads. Parker stood at the center of it all. Dust on his jacket, dirt under his nails, but a fire in his eyes. He had steered the whole operation through breakdowns, setbacks, wild weather, and crazy odds, and still they came out on top. It wasn't just machines and numbers, though. It was people. The crew was the real engine behind the gold. There was Taylor, always elbow deep in grease, fixing whatever broke with nothing but grit and duct tape. There was Tyson out in the trenches, hauling gold and never backing down. Tatiana handling gear like a boss, keeping things moving even when the mud tried to swallow everything. Each person brought something to the table. Some days it was muscle. Other days, it was brains. Sometimes it was just the guts to keep going when the cold bit and the wind screamed. Every single ounce of gold had blood, sweat, and stubbornness baked into it. And that gold, it wasn't just shiny metal, it was proof. Proof that they could chase big dreams and catch them. Proof that hard work, even when it's muddy and cold and miserable, pays off. That mountain of gold didn't come from luck. It came from digging deep, literally and figuratively. They didn't ride into town with gold falling from the sky. They carved it out of the ground, one scoop at a time, through flat tires, busted belts, sleepless nights, and gear that didn't always want to play nice, through mud, cold noise, and non-stop motion. And now, they had over 6,000 ounces stacked up. That's like pulling a treasure chest straight out of the earth. A mountain of dreams, paid for in dirt, diesel, and pure determination. The crazy thing, Parker wasn't even close to done. He was already thinking about the next dig, the next fix, the next haul. That's how he rolls. One season ends and his mind's already racing toward the next. Bigger plans, bolder moves, more gold. This season showed the world what Parker Schnabel is made of. Not just gold, grit, sweat, vision, and the kind of hustle that turns muddy holes into million-dollar paydays. They found big gold, but that was just the beginning. The real race was still coming. Gold fever at full throttle. Now the wash plant rests, the loader cools off, and the crew catches a breath. But not for long, because once you've tasted that kind of win, you're always hungry for more. Parker Schnabel's gold season wasn't just a big deal, it was the kind of wild ride that makes your head spin and your heart race. It was like a real-life treasure hunt, with dirt flying, gears grinding, and gold piling up faster than anyone could have imagined. From early spring to the final freeze, every single day felt like a wild gamble with a jackpot hidden just beneath the mud. The season kicked off with a bang. Parker had picked a few spots that looked promising, but nobody really knew just how much shiny stuff was waiting underground. The first few days were all about testing, poking around the dirt, trying to figure out if they were sitting on fool's gold or the real deal. Turns out it was the real deal, and then some. Right out of the gate, they hit gold. Not just a few flakes here and there, big, chunky, clunky pieces that made the pans sing. The crew was fired up. You could see it in their eyes. Every time they scooped up a fresh pile of pay dirt, there was a little spark of hope. Most of the time, that spark turned into a full-on bonfire. Week after week, the gold just kept coming. The pans were full, the sluices ran heavy, the scales started feeling the weight. It was like the ground was trying to prove a point. One of the standout spots this season was a creek in the heart of Australia. It didn't look like much at first glance, just another dry bed with cracked rocks and some scrubby brush. But underneath all that, gold heaven. In just a few weeks, Parker's team managed to pull more than 1,000 ounces from that little stretch. That's enough to make even the grumpiest miner crack a smile. And that was just the beginning. The season snowballed from there. The machines roared louder, the piles of pay dirt got taller, and the buckets got heavier. By mid-season, the crew was chasing numbers that felt like fantasy. 300 ounces in 1 week, 400 the next. Every time they did a weigh-in, the numbers climbed higher. And every time, Parker just kept digging. He wasn't doing it alone, though. His crew, some new faces, some old hands, were with him every step. These folks worked like machines, pulling shifts that would make most people crumble. Long days in the sun, cold nights in the dirt, and always chasing that next ounce. They believed in the ground they were working, and more importantly, they believed in Parker. Now, the conditions weren't exactly friendly. The weather played its usual tricks: rains flooding pits, winds blowing dust into every crack, and heat that made steel sizzle. Then there were the machines. Even the best equipment breaks down when pushed to the limit. Belts snapped, engines smoked, and more than once a crucial piece of gear gave up the ghost right when they needed it most. But they patched, fixed, welded, and kept rolling. By the time the season neared its end, Parker and his team had hauled over 6,500 ounces out of the earth. That's a mountain of gold, no exaggeration. It's the kind of number you write down just to make sure you didn't dream it. To put it in perspective, 6,000 ounces of gold would be enough to weigh down a truck, sink a canoe, or make 100 folks rich beyond belief. And every single ounce came with its own story. The weigh-ins were the real showstoppers. Picture this: a heavy-duty table, a big industrial scale, and Parker standing there with a bucket full of promise. One by one, he dumps it in. The clinks echo, the numbers flash. 100, 200, 300, and then boom, 382.85 ounces in a single dump. The look on their faces? Pure gold. But behind those big flashy weigh-ins was a season full of small wins and near misses. Every time they hit a gold-rich patch, there were a dozen dry holes they had to fight through first. Every time they found a glittery streak, they had to fight off exhaustion, busted parts, and endless problems to get there. That's the part most folks don't see. The grind. The grind is what made this season special. By the final stretch, the team was down to one wash plant. The second one had given up the ghost after months of constant use. But instead of slowing down, they doubled up their efforts. They squeezed every last ounce out of that single plant, running it longer, pushing it harder, milking every bit of power they could. It was a gamble, but it paid off. And let's talk numbers. A season total of 6,544 ounces. That's more than $6 million in today's gold prices. But beyond the money, it's a number that speaks to grit, to hustle, to refusing to quit when things got messy. It's the kind of number that makes you look back and go, yeah, we did that. The whole site turned into a gold-making machine. The land gave back what it had kept hidden for ages. Pile after pile, they pulled the shine from the mud. Even when the weather turned mean, when the fuel ran low, when sleep was just a memory, they didn't back down. The best part? Parker didn't get cocky. He knew luck had played a part, but it was mostly elbow grease and stubbornness that brought the gold out. He wasn't quick to say whether he'd go back to that spot next season, but anyone who saw the glint in his eye could take a guess. That patch of earth wasn't just lucky, it was special. Like it had been waiting all this time for the right crew to come along and wake it up. And once they did, it couldn't stop giving. But here's the real question. Did Parker really find a gold-rich land? Or did something find him? Drop your thoughts in the comments, smash that like, and don't forget to subscribe.